Why hello my fellow apes, I hope you are well. Here's an interesting question I received on Patreon. Hi Steve, there are Christians who are so convinced of their religion that they have to convert their fellow human beings out of sheer love. If they didn't at least try, they would feel guilty because their fellow human beings would end up in hell. How can this ethical question be answered for climate change? If I know, because I trust the IPCC, that we have a catastrophic future ahead of us, am I morally obligated to proselytise in order to turn other people into climate activists? That's a great question, Marcus, that pertains to the very heart of activism. I've actually thought about this quite a lot over the years, and have consequently changed the way that I approach pretty much every issue, including climate change. Now, you frame your question in terms of it being an ethical one, and speak of moral obligation, and so it seems to me that the answer to your question is going to be parasitic on your moral beliefs. If you are convinced, for instance, that you have moral obligations to humanity, and or sentient creatures more broadly, and that one such obligation is to ensure that the generations to come inherit a world that's not been stripped of resources, and thus retains its natural beauty and hope, then I'd say that you are, indeed, obligated to act towards this goal. Likewise, if you don't believe that you have moral obligations, but rather that you have subjective goals, then I still think that you ought to act to ensure that our children's children inherit a world of beauty. You're getting an ought from an ought is a way to express that. However, this doesn't necessarily mean convincing others of the same propositions that you hold. That's one way, for sure, but there's other ways, with some being, I'd argue, more effective. While studying advertising and marketing at university, I took a course on what's known as lateral thinking, which was coined by a dude called Edward de Bono. In short, lateral thinking is a manner of solving problems using an indirect and creative approach via reasoning that is not immediately obvious. And to give one example from de Bono, no less, when he was asked by a UK Foreign Office committee how to de-escalate the Arab-Israeli conflict, he suggested shipping out jars of Marmite. Yeah, Marmite. Now, while on the surface this seems utterly absurd, as if de Bono has lost his damn mind, his reasoning is pretty damn compelling. The average diet of those who lived in the relevant location was shown to lack zinc, and it's long been known that a lack of zinc leads to aggressive behaviour. Hence, de Bono recommended making zinc-rich products such as Marmite readily available to those involved in the conflict. So, rather than having to convince those involved in the conflict to change their minds on anything, de Bono saw an indirect way to make progress towards the goal. And lateral thinking can, of course, be applied to pretty much any goal. For instance, I care about reducing animal suffering, and partly for climate concerns, but rather than attempting to convince others to think like myself, to buy many of the same propositions that I do, I've found it, for example, to be very effective to simply make meat replacements available. If I'm at a restaurant and my meat-eating friend is interested in my meal, I'll offer them a bite. More often than not, they like it, and so they expand their menu as to include the product. This approach also has the benefit of 1. Not deteriorating my relationship with friends, family, and acquaintances, or put more bluntly, it doesn't entail me coming across as a prick, which, let's face it, is a PR problem that all activists suffer from. Your friend is there for your company, right? They're not there to be preached at. And 2, and perhaps more importantly, it makes others more susceptible to proselytizing, since some of their concerns will have been alleviated. So while you might have the goal, be it for objective or subjective reasons, to leave our wonderful world in a state that's worth inheriting, you don't have to proselytize. No, you can achieve your goals laterally. But wait, there's more. Let's talk more directly about climate change. Another big name that was taught to me in university is Abraham Maslow, and more specifically his hierarchy of needs. In short, Maslow theorised that until one's physiological needs, such as water, food, shelter, and their safety needs, such as employment, resources, and property, have been sufficiently met, they won't greatly care for love and belonging, which is where I'd put climate change. While it's true that the effects of climate change will impact the physiological and safety needs of those to come, and maybe even those alive today, it's too far ahead in the future and far too abstract for most people to even pay it any attention. Caring about the generations to come is certainly a sense of connection. So when it comes to climate change, and indeed animal welfare, I think we're better focused on increasing gross domestic product. So again, no, not proselytizing. If we ensure that the basic needs of others are met, they'll be free to think about societal issues. But with all of this said, and to make clear a point that I've already tersely expressed, I don't think that there's just one way to achieve a goal. To the contrary, I think that there's a need for multiple methods. We need to meet people where they're at, and different people are at different places. Now, if you're someone who's happy confronting people and proselytizing, then all the power to you, go for it. But I'd recommend reading the room first, as if your interlocutor or interlocutors isn't in a place to be receptive, then you'll likely push them away from your cause, and you'll deeply frustrate yourself in the process. So, I hope that helps, Marcus. Thank you again for the question, and all the best to you.